Welcome back to Out of the Blue, the podcast, where real people share powerful stories of resilience and transformation. I'm your host, Vernon West, joined by my daughter and co host, Jackie West, our social media manager, a professional musician and Reiki healer. And thank you, as always, for spending this time with us. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button because it truly helps get the word out there. Our very special guest today is Dr. Marti Loring, a leading trauma expert based in Atlanta and a pioneering voice on how trauma, especially in today's political and cultural climate, shapes our lives in unseen ways. She's a licensed clinical social worker, psychotherapist, and author of Emotional Abuse, the Trauma and the Treatment, a groundbreaking work that redefined how we understand emotional trauma. Her expertise spans everything from wartime wounds and natural disasters to political coercion and the everyday trauma we often carry in silence. Dr. Loring has developed a transformative model for healing, helping people not just survive, but reclaim their peace, their voice, and their power. Let's dive in. Good afternoon, Dr. Loring, and welcome to Out of the Blue, the podcast.
And good afternoon to you as well.
So off we go. Tell us all about that book and how you came into this, really how you came into this field even. I'm curious to know how you launched yourself in this direction. Out of all the many directions you could have gone, right? You went for trauma.
I began seeing that a lot of individuals who were experiencing family violence or a lot of anxiety seem to be struggling with trauma as well. In fact, when individuals strike back in family violence, feel really uncomfortable after experiencing trauma, it's often not because of having any physical abuse. It's often because of some of the emotional issues that we face in life. So, in other words, it's not always someone physically abusing them or an event itself. It's often the emotional reaction to the event that can cause someone to feel um, various symptoms of trauma and not even necessarily know what it is. So, it's as puzzling to them as it is to their loved ones.
So how would people recognize they have trauma? I mean, is that something easy to notice? And what are the signs?
That's an excellent question. One thing is something minor, like feeling irritable. Someone may give you feedback. You certainly seem irritable these days. And if you take a good look at yourself, they may be right. But it's not because you harbor any grudge toward them. It's because of this feeling of rumbling anxiety, which goes on inside you. Someone may forget some of what caused them the trauma in the first place, and actually have periods of time and parts of what the traumatic event was that they don't even remember. That's what trauma can do. It can steal away our memories for periods of time. And there are other symptoms, and that could easily include always feeling anxious and being what they call hyper-vigilant. So you may be sitting still, trying to relax, and all of a sudden you hear a sound, a bump, or see someone whiz by, and you jump as if someone had hit you, and look around. It's being jumpy, hyper vigilant. Those are just some of the ways that a person can wonder what's wrong with me. And it's not necessarily anything wrong with you. It's more what is happening that's causing me to have this reaction. Trauma has often been called a normal reaction to an abnormal event. So we really shouldn't blame ourselves for it.
So the hyper vigilant and jumpy. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that would probably say that, yeah, that's normal for me. But is it normal? It's not normal, is it? People should not. How would we get out of that? Well, I guess when we know the symptoms, what's the way out of them? How do you treatment, talk to someone like yourself, or
It's always good to talk with a counselor or a therapist. Some people who see psychiatrists even wind up taking some medications. Often, though, when a person has come to realize that indeed they have trauma, it may be trauma, it may be so big that it's called post-traumatic stress disorder,
okay, that's the extreme version of
the
trauma.
extreme version, or even more extreme, it can be complex post-traumatic stress disorder or PTSD. That's people who were traumatized as children. They may have had any number of events that traumatize them, and then they grow to be adults and they're still carrying like a heavy knapsack. They're still carrying that trauma from childhood. So they may wind up when they're traumatized as adults to have the severe and complex PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. And I really shouldn't leave out any real important symptoms, one of which is numbing. You may see someone and they just seem so numb. This is particularly important in a court case. The jury may look, say, well, this person doesn't seem to feel at all badly about what they may have had a part in doing. Not necessarily so. May feel so badly and so guilty and full of horror that they just go numb. It's a lack of affect or feeling. And you look at them and boy, you sure can't see it if it's there. But if someone asks them a question relating to how badly they feel, they may just burst into sobbing and not even be able to stop. So I should certainly remember numbing as well as avoidance. You know, it's the hardest thing to get someone with post-traumatic stress disorder or trauma into therapy. I've gone to any number of homes in the past, like with veterans or others. They just don't want to come out and get therapy because it hurts to talk about the buddies they've seen killed in action or other things. And they may feel better off just avoiding it. Of course, it still is down there rumbling away, maybe even causing them stomach aches or headaches. But avoidance is a big hallmark of trauma, too.
Is something like that transferable? Like, for example, my father, he had been in the Korean War and he was severely traumatized, severely, a lot of PTSD. Really, he used to tell me stories about those traumas, traumatic experiences. But as a kid, I felt traumatized by hearing them because they were really, you know, someone died in the story and there was death involved. And I'm maybe 12 hearing the story as he's crying on the bed. I'm saying, "Why are you crying, Dad?" Is it transferable in that way from your parents?
Certainly. I mean, I'm sure you loved your dad. You're a very kind and loving person, and your dad, sure. It must have been very heartbreaking for you. And then to see him crying and you saw his pain,
Right.
I think, certainly, I think that's a very important idea that at some of the Holocaust victims, some of their children, now adult children, have talked about feeling traumatized when their parents repeat the experiences.
That's very interesting. And concerning in a way for a lot of us. I definitely feel that I feel some of those, after effects. You mentioned numbing being one. Don't people, like, for example, a lot of people turn to drugs. A lot of those guys that come out of the war, they end up on heroin. They end up numbing themselves with chemicals, with substances. And I've seen that a lot with, all substances. People are using substances to numb themselves. And when they finally come around and maybe through a 12-step program or whatever, they uncover what it was, and then they start getting some healing. But I mean, so many people are probably walking around don't know this and don't aren't addressing it because it isn't so obvious as maybe they're just having a beer at the end of the night. Maybe they're just having a glass of wine every night. Maybe it's just something very innocuous, but it's numbing them. It's pushing down the feelings.
You are
So
so right.
yeah, and I'm wondering about what do you think about the pandemic? I'm wondering about that. I think that I talk about this with doctors and stuff, and they would agree that the pandemic has caused a lot of definitely concern because the people out there don't even know that they would maybe traumatized through that experience. It was very traumatic.
It was for so many reasons. I lost my own sister in the pandemic. She died of COVID, and a lot of people had very sad losses.
My mother, same
Oh
thing. Yep,
my,
yep,
you know exactly what I mean. I'm so sorry too.
yeah.
And many people felt helpless. Like, what can I do for me to be safe and the people I love? And many did the COVID shots and all, but still there's this sense of helplessness. Um, and sometimes when people with trauma are feeling that, their numbing isn't working. because
right.
that's just a cover up, just like drugs, you so wisely mentioned. Sometimes they'll have an outburst and they'll wonder what just happened. And they didn't mean to. They just kind of got angry all of a sudden because of the trauma. In one book I wrote called Intimate Coercion, Recognition and Recovery, it had to do with people in an intimate relationship who felt pushed into doing things but didn't really know what was happening. I feel like to recognize what you have going on when it's trauma, that allows you to recover from it. Like you mentioned, your wonderful program, which I have watched some of, and it's very inspiring. It's people who I think have recognized the traumatic event, and then they want to recover it in a way that's meaningful. And many of them want to give to others, some of whom aren't recognizing. They say, well, let me help you recognize what you went through because I've gone through it. Here's how I've recovered. Maybe you can find meaning in this because there's really nothing better for trauma than to find meaning where you can help others.
Find meaning. That's a great piece of advice right there. I'm thinking about, I think about like ever since podcasts have been going out and I encounter people out there and I talk to someone that like I remember when we did the podcast about a woman with breast cancer. And I found her so inspiring. And I wanted every woman that I knew who had dealt with that, you should see this, you'll love it. But a few of them said, I can't handle it. I don't think I can handle it. I don't want to hear about someone else hurting. And it took, the ones that were brave enough to listen to the thing, they all came back and said it was very helpful. And so it was even helpful to people like the siblings or the children of that person to hear
Oh,
that.
how wonderful. And you were right, actually, that it probably would have been helpful to every single woman you recommended it for. However, that issue of avoidance when you have trauma, because there's such pain with trauma, and it's understandable that one would want to push it away and avoid it. But sometimes the very thing that would help the most, watching that inspiring contest, talking to a therapist, um, they're still avoiding it because, like with drugs, they're avoiding the pain, which is certainly understandable.
Right, right. Oh, of course. I definitely understood when the woman would say that to me. One woman was in tears telling me that. I just
Oh,
not ready to do that. I'm not. I completely understood, and I would never push the person any further. I just mentioned it that you might find it helpful. And
yes. Perfect way to do it. And I can understand that you would do it that way because you really empathize with people. I'm glad you gave them the opportunity, and I'm so glad for the people who are able to do it. Maybe sometime you heard back from one or two of the others saying, when you mentioned such and such, can I listen to it now? Sometimes people get back in touch with you afterward and are able to go forth.
yeah, that's true. Actually, one of those ladies did finally listen to it, and then she
Oh,
she texted me back and said how wonderful it was.
oh, how great.
And I'm so happy about that. I
Yeah,
mean, that's what it's all about, really.
sure.
Um, that helps my trauma, really. I'm probably doing it to help my own trauma, right? But to help others is a way to get out of your own pain. I mean,
Yes.
in my life, that's been sort of the theme of my life. I mean, I played music for many years because I was in pain and I was helping people feel better, and that made me feel better because I was going through my father's situation and stuff.
That's so true. That's one of the many reasons your podcast is so valuable because it helps people see that you actually can often find meaning in trauma.
That's what I think it is. I mean, as bad as the pandemic was, and I think we're going to go on to other bad things that are happening in our society right now. As bad as they are, I found that through out of the blue, maybe I've already thought this, maybe before I did out of the blue, but everything is a teacher. You know, pain is a teacher. I mean, you can learn so much from looking at what it is that's bothering you, that's hurting you. And it unfolds maybe a meaning that gives you a larger purpose in your life. That's what it's done for me. So I find that to be useful. Pain is useful. I don't want God to hear me say that too loud because I don't want any more, God.
No, 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 no,
I've had enough.
no.
Don't say that either, because you know what? I'm knocking on wood. I don't know why I do that. Does God hear the wood louder or something? Why don't we knock on, you know?
You have a marvelous sense of humor. I think that helps with trauma too.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I think so. I think that my wife is and I laugh a lot, and you senses of humor is essential to living as far as I'm concerned. Some of my best friends are comedians. And
Oh,
and they're very, when we talk, right, they would crack me up. But comedians can be a very sad, usually have very dark experiences
it's true.
that they're using the comedy to help. The same way I'm using this podcast, to so I use music to help people helps you, you know.
Yes. And I think it inspires people too. I think the fact that you're so open about what this podcast means to you and helping other people, I think that must mean a lot to people who are feeling hopeless, which is another symptom of trauma, sometimes hopelessness. I think that many would feel, oh, gosh, listen to what he's done, kind of inspired.
I hope so. That's my hope. I mean, this covers everything we're about, really, because what is what are we talking about, really? In a sense, we're talking about surviving trauma, and it comes in all shapes and sizes. Sometimes and this one here, this why I think it's so important their work, because you're exposing some of the things that I really wasn't thinking about. Now I'm thinking about really how the pandemic is traumatic. Now we're also now moving on to, I think you know, the events that happen, like tragedies in the news. I don't know how people they have to numb themselves to it. I think that's what's happening with the way the media is handling the 24/7 news cycle, because now there isn't a moment that they don't cover something bad, because there's something bad. It's a huge world, let's face it, right?
Yes,
Something bad happening somewhere.
true.
And in the news business, if it bleeds, it leads. That's how they get eyeballs, by saying something bad is going on. Everyone goes click, click, click. What is this? So how do we deal with that we just have to tune it out, really. We have to stop watching the news.
I don't think that that's really
Is that the only
the
solution?
solution.
I don't
No.
think it is, though. That's the sort of that would be
I think
avoidance,
I
you know.
think there's so much going on and it's really important to learn how to effectively engage and to like, we have our computers, we don't need to watch. I don't want to exclude anybody by naming any news platforms, but like you get to choose your news at this point. We have a lot of choice. We might not for a very long time. Um, Considering some things. But yeah, I just think that that's kind of an older paradigm to think that we don't have any choice.
I think in terms of maybe the older generation who is not as savvy, my age and older, whatever, they basically are married to the TV for their news. They don't really actually have not learned to use the computer and their phone. And I've tried to educate certain people that I know from that age group. They just don't want to. I'm watching Fox News. I'm watching NBC, and that's what I'm going to do.
I mean, I understand that, it's easy. It's a really chaotic world, and what do you do when you're in a lot of chaos? Like you just want to be still.
You want something consistent. I think
Yeah,
that's
yeah, people you trust, perhaps, or the newscasters, a form of something you're used to and trust. It's been research has shown that if you do watch something that induces trauma over and over and over, it makes you a little more traumatized each time that you watch it. So I think that it may be useful these days to make choices for yourself, like how many times are you going to watch the news about the tragedy of the flooding in Texas? Or is there kind of going to be a point where you're going to say, well, I've seen this several times. I think I'm going to call the Red Cross or see what I can do about this. Nothing that would be more useful for helplessness or hopelessness than to choose a plan of action.
Yeah.
absolutely
Yeah.
action. I've
Plan
heard
of
that.
action.
Yes, I heard
Mhm.
that said a few times actually. That if you can know the solution, but if you don't take action, the action is how you get out of that.
It's not so encouraged publicly, It's obfuscated on purpose.
Who would you say is obfuscating it? The media themselves?
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, I think they want you coming back, so they're going to find a way to leave a cliffhanger of some kind in their
Yeah.
report, Come on, come back tomorrow to find out X, Y, Z. They just want to keep you coming. But
Yeah, exactly.
and then that applies now to also um, the political climate, not just American, but the world. Now, that's also concerning too. Do you think that's causing a lot of trauma in the world?
Yes, I do think so. I'm writing a book about that at this time. It's not which side you're on or what you believe or don't believe or what your values are. It's really everyone, I think, who's experiencing uh, some, no matter how small or how big, some sort of traumas. There's so many changes, for example, and losses. And one grieves with losses, which can be traumatic as well.
How can we do? What can we do to go? How in your book do you have some powerful solutions? I think I want to hear them.
Yes, I think one thing is we've got to control how much we take in and how we take it in. How much of the news are you going to watch? And then I have just hundreds and hundreds of emails coming in about the various things that are going on in the world and our country. So I've selected five individuals and groups where I really like what they're doing. I follow them. I read about these five. I contribute financially to them. If they say, do this, like give a little money to this particular candidate or that, I'm likely to do that. So that's a way I can focus and not just be overwhelmed. And a third thing I think is valuable is if there's a group that you like to go to. Some of them have weekly meetings, some monthly, some on Zoom, some you go yourself. I think that's a really nice way to feel a sense of community that you're being involved. And any action that you can find helps, takes away guilt on our part. Because when one sees various people suffering in different ways, one tendency is to feel helpless and guilty, even hopeless, which all can lead to trauma together or alone. And I think to know these are three things that are really important to me, three areas. And here's how I'm addressing each one. Gives one a sense of um, accomplishment, a power, less helplessness, certainly less guilt because you're really working at doing things, whether it's money or other ways, but you're giving.
I wrote down donate, community, and action.
Yes, really selecting,
Oh, selective
yeah,
donations
three to
to
five groups
causes.
or people, and they'll and keep up with them.
All right, that's a
You
good
see
one.
it on
Yeah.
your email. This I'm going to read, and they will often guide you. Here's a candidate or here's an activity. And since you've selected them, it's likely to be something you might want to do on occasion. So I think when you choose donating, that's a great word to use. You're donating of yourself or your time or your money. And then you don't feel quite so helpless and hopeless and traumatized because you're being very powerful, really.
You're empowering yourself. You're taking your power back. That's what you're doing.
Exactly.
And it's,
Well said.
And it's
so
aligned with your values.
Definitely.
you find the right people though that you can do that with, and then you tune into that and tune out all the noise, maybe and focus on those people that you actually believe in their causes.
That's just so well said. That's exactly it. And then you have a sense of your own values because trauma can make us lose ourselves to some extent. And this reminds us, oh, I really do value this, and I'm doing such and such toward it. Just we feel a sense of who we are and what we're continuing to do.
Right, right. And then the act of getting in groups, go and have meetings with people. That could be, well, there's 12-step groups, there's social clubs.
There's one group called In Town Atlanta Women that I like, and they talk about politics these days. Choose the area that you're most concerned about, and then they set up separate tables. And in these at these tables, you discuss what you think can be done to help. And you meet very interesting people, form friendships, And so you're not quite so isolated.
Oh yeah. So isolation definitely is something to not, it's really, I saw a study that said that loneliness is climbing. Like it's like 33% of people in the have been that the number was like something like that are lonely. And it's hard to fathom that with everything out there, with the phone connecting everybody instantly, Facebook, Instagram, all the social medias. How does one get lonely with all that out there? But I see it happening, and I definitely wonder about it. How do we deal with that? Go to those meetings, go down to your house. Don't just live online.
Yeah, it's really important. Online can be very meaningful, no doubt about that. But to be face to face and get to know another human being and they show their interest in you and you talk together about problem solving, it really does decrease loneliness, which can lead to trauma and different types of illnesses. One research study showed that people who were getting older and who were very lonely died earlier than those who were getting older and were not lonely at all. Well, maybe once in a while, but not as a pattern. We can have a longer life by interacting with others. And one also hears people who are lonely talking about somatic problems. They have stomach aches or headaches or hard time getting out of bed in the morning. Loneliness is something in and of itself. It can lead to a great deal of sadness.
I am definitely sure that loneliness causes people to die sooner because I actually saw it firsthand when I was in the hospital. I spent too long in the hospital one time for my own journey, and I saw the ones who were not doing well, and they were just lonely. They didn't get visitors. No one. They didn't even. I would try to talk to them. And they didn't really want to talk too much. But if I got them out of themselves, I felt good. But it made me want to do this podcast. It's one of the things that drove me to do this because I saw how vital it is for people to know they're not alone. And
Yes,
that's why I chose the traumatic things. I don't think everybody comes on as a trauma victim because sometimes people just realize the powerlessness they have over things that happen. That's
uh-huh.
essentially, you know what I mean? That's essentially what Out of the Blue is about. Well, our own, personal powerlessness that there's just so much we can do. Like I love the serenity prayer to to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So that to me was really epitomizes everything about it. We have to keep the focus on our own self and work on that understanding of our place in the universe, to be as
Yeah,
vital, to be as helpful. I think we have to help others. I mean, I think so many religions say it, but not many people realize that is the key, helping others. If you really get you out of yourself.
exactly. I think that's really true. Interacting with, helping others, working on a cause. All of a sudden, you forgot about that headache or sadness, you know?
Right. It's brilliant. Everything gets into perspective. I think that's the main thing, perspective. That one of the worst aspects of loneliness is it puts everything blows everything up because you're focusing on that stuff.
This sense of powerlessness also can be paired with a sense of taking back your power from um, feeling a loss of control and of self, loss of connection to self, through I guess, the ability to surrender to powerlessness. That kind of, funnily enough, solidifies your power in
Yeah,
yourself.
it does because you realize who you can actually change is yourself. You try if you can change your view and the fact that you're now going to donate and do some of the take those steps that Dr. Loring is so
And you have a lot of power.
wonderfully outlining, that you really bring that power back because you are now empowered to do what you really can do. And you know that some of that stuff's out of your control. I mean, it just is. I mean, but what is in our control is whatever we focus on and get to that meeting and donate to that cause. Those are the things that we can do something about. I'll try anyway. Feel good about that.
Yes, and I think what you're saying is so important, both of you. The whole idea of connecting with ourselves. We don't want anything to cause us to lose a connection to ourselves. I think it's sometimes it's fun to sit down and imagine different parts of ourselves. We all have different parts. There's a brave part. There's how tender we are with our dog, and hopefully others the tender part. There's the frightened part, and other kind of characters within. It's fun sometimes just to sit down and have a meeting with all of them, and see what our values are, and let each of them speak. And true, as you said, we may not have control over something, and yet we're so together and coherent, and a real sense of our own identity, and maybe go around the circle of all of our parts and find out, well, what do we most value about ourselves? Because sometimes we get kind of down on ourselves too.
Back to one of the subjects that definitely I'm very curious about, and I think would be good to impart this to our listeners is how can they evaluate their own life? What's a good way to check themselves to see how what if they're suffering some trauma, first of all, and if they feel they find that they're checking off some boxes, and yeah, I am numbing, I am this. Now that then the next step would be to identify what it was.
Yeah, so recognize it. I think going to a good psychiatrist, psychologist, sociologist, or clinical social worker like myself, counselor, um, and having a session where you talk about yourself. Where are you in life? Are you struggling with anything? And if so, what would you like to do about it? To have a kind of a second eye on you who might have some very helpful ideas. I think that would be a wonderful thing to do. As one thing, it's always good to read about things. I think watching your podcast is a lovely way for people. I noticed you said earlier your partners, and you said those who listen. I think they probably feel like your partners in that you care about them and how they feel and what they're going through. Listening to a podcast that addresses their needs and others. I think it's nothing like getting a good checkup, though. I mean, we go to the doctor to get a good checkup once or twice a year. If something hurts, we may go to our primary care provider. There's nothing crazy about going to anyone from a clinical sociologist or social worker to a psychologist or psychiatrist. In fact, it's pretty darn smart.
I
Just have
think
an evaluation,
absolutely, I completely agree with that. I spoke to someone quite a lot, and I stopped recently, but I'm thinking of doing it again. Because you're right, though. You get with that person. That's when you take a self inventory, really,
Yes,
because you have to
that's
go.
exactly right.
And I like what you
Yeah, I
said.
think it's not the easiest thing to find like a compatible person
True.
for you, but I do think like starting somewhere is important. Yeah.
You know,
You're right. It's not easy to find someone who's compatible for you, but you're also right. It's nice to start, and you may go for a while and decide you don't need to go at this point. You may have other things that you're doing, which is fine also. Don't let me leave out pastors who do counseling. Some of them are wonderful too.
yeah, they're counselors too. They can be.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But it's sort of like taking our emotional temperature, isn't it? Or seeing, I mean, there's trauma all over the place in our world, in our country, and it's sort of like taking our emotional or our trauma temperature.
What would you say the checklist is that people could use for their own audit to see about their trauma? Like say, I want to know how far I'm traumatized. I don't think I am, but what would be the things I want to put on my checklist?
A wonderful idea. How anxious are you and how often?
All right,
Are you a little jumpy or
anxiety,
hypervigilant?
anxiety, hyperness.
Yes. Anxiety, how severe? How are you getting along with other people? Are you irritable or distrustful? Do you find yourself having trouble sleeping?
Oh,
Trauma
that's a
can,
good one.
oh yeah, make it hard to go to sleep, and then you wake up and it won't let you go back to sleep, won't stop talking to you. Um, do you tend to react in an anxious way to other things? Are you feeling depressed and hopeless and helpless?
Oh, it's like
Do you have,
overreacting, say, to
yeah,
something small
exactly.
is a big tell.
Do you have so little energy? Because
Lack of energy.
trauma just saps a person. It's like taking the reverse of a shot, takes energy out of you. And if you're thinking kind of pessimistic, and some people are pessimistic, true enough, but with trauma, a person doesn't have a lot of hope. And you miss that. Feeling hopeful is fun.
You got to have hope. Oh my
Oh
God.
man, just seeing all of these, I'm writing all of them down and I'm like, yeah.
Oh,
But I also don't know if I'm just supposing this, but I feel like trauma is like the word sounds, I mean, I feel like the word has such a range and that like yeah, with my therapist we've been doing inner child work and I learned about environmental trauma, which is literally just because I'm a child like observing my environment and deciding things and creating belief systems. So, like, nobody in particular did anything, but I absorbed it a particular way. And then I live out these programs in my life. And as I'm older, I'm like, oh, where did that reaction come from? And oh, like, why am I scared in this way when I've done this before or something, like I'm just learning about all of this stuff and
wow.
um that trauma is as a word is I guess stigmatized, like it's only reserved for veterans, but it's like I believe it's every single person.
Yeah, I think you're right about that.
Yeah, that's very insightful. I think two things to remember about trauma is it doesn't mean you're crazy. Trauma is a normal reaction to an abnormal situation.
Oh my goodness, that's really good. A normal reaction to an abnormal situation. That is
Correct.
perfect.
Which I guess to like a 2-year-old, a lot of things are abnormal. They haven't experienced them before,
True.
or maybe like I needed a hug at a time where nobody was around.
Uh-huh.
So the situation was abnormal.
Uh-huh. That's
Would
right.
that be like interpreted as like an abnormal?
Sure. A person can feel rejected.
Yeah.
And then if you're a child, you wonder if there's something wrong with you that would cause people to reject you.
Yep, yep, yep.
Yeah.
Boy, oh boy, yeah.
Oh, this is a session.
So basically, right, I hope everyone's getting the same out of it that I am. Take your notes, write them down. So if you are ticking off any of these things, so now the next step is to try to think back. When did this all begin? Like I don't think I really felt this kind of trauma until the pandemic hit. That really started my trauma. And it made me those were the symptoms started beginning right around then. I was saying, "Oh no, this is not, this is all the news media blowing it up, nothing big," but it turned into something big, and that kind of traumatized me because my instinct was telling me that it was not going to go anywhere, and my instinct was so wrong. And when your instinct's wrong, I think that kind of screws you up because it's your inner self feeling things, and it's usually right. My instinct's been very right on for me, but it wasn't right about that one. I was totally wrong.
I think
And
you had a lot of company. There are lots of people who felt that way. And then there was the shock, when it turned out to be so big and so awful.
right.
Yeah, so that's kind of you to share that example.
So what do you think now? I mean, now we're dealing with a lot of stuff going on in the world, um, societal influences, regarding the politics and all that. I know you're writing that book now. So when you find that you are suffering from these things, I guess the steps you were mentioning earlier, which is to, donate your time, your money on people that you think are on the right side of the truth, and then go into meetings with other people. And then lastly was The last one was action, to do things, to make actions on yourself, actions in the world around you. So is that what we say? Is that the not the cure, but at least a bit of good medicine?
Yeah, I think it is good medicine. Being in community with others who understand, which you create with your podcast, is lovely. And maybe the most important thing of all is be kind to yourself. Um, because what you said about your reaction to the pandemic and everything, you should have seen it coming and not have thought it wouldn't be so big. You know, I felt kind towards you when you said that because so many people went through that and felt the same way you did. I think it's so important that we're kind to ourselves because we won't always do the right thing. Or we sometimes won't want to watch the news, which is not a good, long lasting uh, way to solve things. If we numb out and we're numb and we don't watch the news, then we feel guilty. Gee, I wonder what happened that, I don't know about it. How can I help with it? So maybe the overarching umbrella is we really need to be kind to ourselves and around people who are kind to us. I think your podcast helps with that too. The ones I've seen, you're so kind to the people, and then they're often kind to others. It's like, a cascading waterfall where the kindness is going down. And that's so important right now.
Yeah,
There isn't as much kindness as I wish there would be.
I guess that's a huge one right there. Kindness.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is
Kindness.
so big. Be kind to yourself for starters, because you can't really be kind to anyone if you're not kind to yourself.
I mean, if there's anything I've learned I guess in my relationship, it's that I do a lot of projecting. And so if I'm not kind, that's probably showing me that I'm just not kind to me right now.
Beautifully said. That's true.
Right
Yeah.
on. Yep, that's
And I'd
really good.
rather not be unkind to others,
Sure.
Yeah,
but that's a very clear like
easy choice.
thing to look at, to lead you back to what it actually is. And
Because
yeah,
when you like for me, if I react hyper, overreact, for example, because the world is bothering me, and I'm not realizing that, and I overreact to something small. Well, then that's not being kind to myself. And
Right.
then and I pay a price for that. You
Oh,
do pay a
sure.
price. And it takes away that serenity that comes
Exactly.
from, working, yourself as being kind. I mean, that's so important. I don't think I could stress that enough. I mean, nothing makes me more upset was when I don't feel like I was kind. Like
yeah.
even if somebody does something wrong to me, like righteous indignation is the biggest danger for me because I'll do something that I feel bad about. I might tell that person the truth. Oh, I used to feel proud of myself because I don't split hairs, but that's not always the kind thing to do. The kind thing to do is sometimes just let it go. People, you don't know what's going on in that person's life. They could be going through something, anything, or maybe went through something years ago. You're not. That's
I mean,
why
it's likely they are.
it's
You
very
know,
likely that they are.
it's
Yes.
like so clear,
I
you know,
think
if you really look at it.
that's
Yeah.
funny. It's very likely that they are. It's so likely.
Isn't it wonderful? Again, I commented earlier, you all have such great sense of humor where, we can look at things and laugh. I think that's just so wonderful because there's so much sad around us now. To be able to laugh and even see wisdom in what we're laughing at and share it with each other, I think that's very special. I'd like to thank you for that today.
Going forward, we have the basic idea of the checklist of finding out if you're even suffering from trauma. And I would say that generally speaking, probably you are, if you're even thinking about any of these things. That's the first step, finding out if you are suffering from some form of trauma. You're on the spectrum, as I think Jack was saying. The word trauma covers a wide spectrum. And if you're on that spectrum, you should be aware of it. And that awareness is going to help you. And then going forward, you get counseling. Um, there were three things: donate, meeting community, and actions. Those are the actual going forward things we should do if you think you are suffering from some form of trauma. Is that right?
Yes, yes, and community.
And definitely getting in touch with a good psychologist, psychotherapist, social work, all the above of you mentioned, and then find groups. There are groups out there you can meet with, right?
Yes.
Did I miss anything that we should tell people that would
No,
be
not a thing.
action items for them?
Best of good fortune to them all.
That's right. Best of good fortune to you all. And I think we could end on that note, really. Best of good fortune to you all. Thank you, Dr. Marty, for this amazing journey into understanding trauma and the beginnings of learning how to handle it, deal with it, first recognizing it and then handling it. And I cannot thank you enough. I'm really, really grateful that you came to us from out of the blue. Really,
Thank you.
to be on our show, because we're going to see you more as much as you were willing to do it. We're going to see you.
Wonderful. Thank you both so very much.
Yes, and remember those immortal words that Marty said, be kind. Let's say it, you say it.
Be kind to yourself.
Say it one more time.
Please be kind to yourself.
Love it. Love it. That's where we're going to end right now. Thank you so much, Marty. And have a great day. And you guys listening, you too. And remember to hit that like and subscribe. And we'll just keep getting that word out there. And we're going to bring kindness back in vogue and love and happiness back in fashion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Love that.
Out of the Blue, the podcast, hosted by me, Vernon West, co-hosted by Jacqueline West, edited by Joe Gallo, music and logo by Vernon West III. Have an Out of the Blue story of your own you'd like to share? Reach us at info@outoftheblue-thepodcast.org. Subscribe to Out of the Blue on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, and on our website, outoftheblue-thepodcast.org. You can also check us out on Patreon for exclusive content.